Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping straight into the fascinating microscopic world hidden behind a very common symptom, joint pain. Millions of us wake up every single day with an aching knee or a stiff hand, right? But what is actually happening beneath the skin? Today we're going to trace that pain all the way down to the cellular and even the genetic level. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start by classifying joint pain, distinguish between inflammatory and non-inflammatory causes, break down the autoimmune response, look at the genetic blueprint, and finally wrap up with a clinical approach.
All right, let's get into it. Section 1. Classifying joint pain into 4 pathophysiological buckets.
To solve the medical mystery of joint pain, doctors don't just guess. They have to categorize the pain based on its underlying pathophysiology. And the crucial point here is that a patient's joint pain usually falls into one of 4 main buckets. First up, we've got inflammatory pain, which includes autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis or systemic lupus erythematosus. Then there's mechanical or degenerative pain. That's your classic wear and tear, like osteoarthritis. We also have infectious causes, like a sudden, really dangerous septic arthritis. And finally, crystal-induced pain, where microscopic shards like uric acid trigger intense conditions like gout. Identifying the right bucket from day one is absolutely critical, because each one dictates an entirely different diagnostic path and treatment plan. Now this brings us to a huge clinical distinction that honestly confuses a lot of people, the difference between arthralgia and arthritis. You can absolutely have pain without significant inflammation. That's known as arthralgia. It's a symptom, maybe from a sprain or just overuse. But true arthritis, that brings the heat, literally. It involves active joint inflammation that causes pain, noticeable swelling, warmth, and a reduced range of motion.
Moving right along to Section 2, inflammatory versus non-inflammatory pain and how we actually spot the difference.
So how do we play medical detective here to separate those first 2 major buckets? Well, notice how inflammatory pain, like in rheumatoid arthritis, features what we call the gel phenomenon. That's morning stiffness lasting over an hour. But here's the kicker. That stiffness and pain actually get better with movement and activity. Conversely, mechanical wear and tear like osteoarthritis features pretty brief morning stiffness, usually under 30 minutes, and the pain gets progressively worse the more you use the joint. Plus, inflammatory conditions often come with systemic symptoms. We're talking fatigue, low-grade fever, maybe even weight loss, because your entire immune system is fired up, leaving the joints swollen, red, and warm. Mechanical joints, on the other hand, typically feel cool and hard on examination with 0 systemic symptoms.
And that brings up a massive question. One that bridges the gap between what a patient feels in the clinic and what's actually happening inside their cells. If our immune system is our ultimate defense force, why on earth does it suddenly go rogue and attack our own tissues?
Let's find out in Section 3, the autoimmune breakdown and losing immunological tolerance.
Normally, your body is an absolute genius at identifying itself. It operates on a highly regulated process called immunological tolerance. This is basically the immune system's programmed ability to recognize your own cells, tissues, and proteins as self, making sure it doesn't unleash friendly fire. When this fails, that's when autoimmunity is born. So how exactly is this tolerance maintained? Think of it as a 2-tier security system. First, we have central tolerance. You can picture this as a super strict military boot camp in the thymus. Here, developing T cells are tested. If they react too strongly to your own self-antigens, they are summarily eliminated. Second, for the few rogue cells that somehow escape boot camp, we have peripheral tolerance. This is your body's circulating police force, heavily reliant on regulatory T cells, or Tregs. These trigs use suppressive cytokines like interleukin-10 to basically calm down those self-reacting cells and enforce a state of unresponsiveness. But here's where the breakdown happens. When both the boot camp and the police force fail, an external trigger can step in and initiate disease. For instance, a virus might have proteins that look incredibly similar to your joint tissue. It's a phenomenon called molecular mimicry. Your immune system attacks the virus but gets confused and cross-reacts, attacking your own joints in the process. Which leads us to Section 4, the genetic blueprint and inheriting the autoimmune risk. You might be wondering why these immune safeguards fail in some people but work perfectly fine in others who are facing the exact same viruses or environmental triggers. Well, a big part of that answer is buried deep in our DNA, but it's vital to understand that autoimmunity is rarely caused by just one smoking gun gene. It's a complex, multi-layered genetic blueprint.
Autoimmune diseases actually feature polygenetic inheritance, meaning it's a numbers game. Multiple genetic variants each contribute a tiny amount of risk, and if you accumulate enough of them, your susceptibility skyrockets. The real heavy hitters here are the HLA genes, specifically alleles like HLA-DRB1. You can think of these as the proteins that present evidence to your immune system. Certain variations bind to joint peptides way too aggressively, driving conditions like rheumatoid arthritis. We also look at SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms, which are basically tiny typos in the genes that regulate your immune checkpoints. But, and this is crucial, genetics isn't destiny. We have to factor in epigenetics. Environmental factors like smoking, infections, or toxins can literally modify how your genes are expressed without altering the underlying DNA sequence. Ultimately, a genetically susceptible host almost always needs an environmental trigger to flip the switch and initiate the disease.
All right, let's bring it all together in Section 5, the clinical approach, from theory to practice. Let's zoom back out from the microscopic world of genetics and apply all this knowledge to a real-world patient experiencing joint pain in the clinic. How do doctors piece this all together? They use a very systematic step-by-step approach. Step 1 is always the history and physical exam. The doctor assesses the chronology. Is it acute? Is it chronic? They check the duration of that morning stiffness and map out the exact joint distribution. Are we talking symmetrical small joints like rheumatoid arthritis or asymmetrical weight-bearing joints like osteoarthritis? Step 2 involves targeted laboratory tests. They're looking for markers of systemic inflammation like elevated ESR and CRP and hunting for those specific autoantibodies we discussed earlier. Step 3 utilizes imaging studies. X-rays, ultrasounds, or MRIs help visualize the structural integrity of the joint to reveal any cartilage loss or fluid. And finally, step 4 is targeted treatment based on the specific pathophysiology they've uncovered. Non-inflammatory pain might just need physical therapy, while inflammatory autoimmune pain requires powerful disease-modifying drugs to suppress that overactive immune system.
I'm going to leave you with this somewhat provocative thought. We've seen how our environment fundamentally shapes our health, actively interacting with our DNA to either maintain or break immunological tolerance. What you take away from this explainer should completely reframe how you view your body's defenses. Because every single day, through the infections we fight, the environment we navigate, and the habits we keep, we are literally writing the story of our immune system. So what daily habits might be actively rewriting your immune system's tolerance right now? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep asking questions about the amazing science happening inside you.